Isaac Newton, the architect of the universe. Good evening, dear listeners, and welcome to the first chapter of our series, The Greatest Scientific Minds in History. Tonight, we embark on a journey through time to an era when the world was ripe for discovery and one man's genius would illuminate the path to understanding the cosmos. This is the story of Isaac Newton, a figure whose name is synonymous with brilliance, a man whose ideas still shape our world today. So find a cozy spot, let your imagination take flight, and join me as we explore the life and legacy of a true titan of science. A humble beginning in Woolsthorpe. Our story begins on a cold Christmas day in 1642 in the small village of Woolsthorpe, England. Here, in a modest farmhouse, Isaac Newton was born, a premature baby so tiny that his mother said he could fit into a quart mug. His father had died 3 months earlier, and the odds were stacked against him. Yet, this fragile child would grow into one of the most formidable minds in history. Newton's early years were marked by solitude and curiosity. As a boy, he was more interested in tinkering with mechanical devices than playing with other children. He built miniature windmills, water clocks, and sundials, his hands always busy, his mind always questioning. But it was not just gadgets that fascinated him. It was the world itself, the way leaves fell, the path of the moon, the colors in a beam of light. These were the puzzles that would occupy him for a lifetime. At the age of 18, Newton entered Trinity College, Cambridge, where he was expected to follow a traditional path of study. But Newton was no ordinary student. He devoured books on mathematics, astronomy, and philosophy, often neglecting his formal coursework to pursue his own interests. It was here, in the quiet halls of Cambridge, that the seeds of his genius began to sprout. The apple and the moon. In 1665, a great plague swept through England, forcing Newton to retreat to his family home in Woolsthorpe. It was during this period of isolation that one of the most famous moments in scientific history occurred. As the story goes, Newton was sitting in the orchard when he saw an apple fall from a tree. This simple event sparked a profound realization. The same force that pulled the apple to the ground also governed the motion of the moon around the earth. This insight led Newton to develop his law of universal gravitation, a revolutionary idea that explained not only the fall of an apple, but the orbits of planets and the tides of the sea. It was a unifying theory, a single law that connected the heavens and the earth. But Newton's genius did not stop there. He also formulated the 3 laws of motion, which describe how objects move and interact, laying the foundation for classical mechanics. These discoveries were published in his magnum opus, Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica, in 1687. The Principia, as it is known, is considered one of the most important works in the history of science, a book that transformed our understanding of the universe. But what drove Newton to such heights? Was it pure curiosity or something deeper, a desire to uncover the divine order of creation? The alchemist and the mystic Newton's scientific achievements are legendary, but there was another side to him that is often overlooked. He was a man of many passions, and one of them was alchemy. For years, Newton conducted experiments in his private laboratory, seeking to transmute base metals into gold and uncover the secrets of the philosopher's stone. He wrote extensively on the subject, his notes filled with cryptic symbols and coded language. But Newton's interests went beyond alchemy. He was also deeply religious, a devout Christian who spent countless hours studying the Bible and writing theological treatises. He believed that the universe was a grand puzzle created by God, and that science was a way to decipher its mysteries. This blend of science, alchemy, and theology paints a complex portrait of Newton, a man who sought truth in both the seen and the unseen. Yet for all his brilliance, Newton was not without his flaws. He was known for his prickly personality, his tendency to hold grudges, and his fierce rivalries with other scientists, such as Robert Hooke and Gottfried Leibniz. These conflicts, particularly over the invention of calculus, reveal a man who was as human as he was extraordinary. A legacy etched in the stars, Newton's impact on science is immeasurable. His laws of motion and gravity became the bedrock of physics for centuries, guiding everything from the construction of bridges to the launch of spacecraft. His work in optics, including the inventions of the reflecting telescope, opened new windows to the stars, and his mathematical innovations, particularly calculus, provided tools that are still essential to scientists and engineers today. But Newton's legacy extends beyond his scientific contributions. He was a symbol of the Enlightenment, a figure who embodied the power of reason and observation. His life story, from a frail child to a towering intellect, inspires us to believe that curiosity and perseverance can unlock the secrets of the universe. As we conclude this chapter, we are left with a sense of awe at the journey of Isaac Newton, a man who saw further than others, not because he stood on the shoulders of giants, but because he dared to look beyond the horizon. His story is one of discovery, of the relentless pursuits of truth, and of the wonders that await those who seek to understand the world around them. And as we turn the page to the next chapter of our series, we carry with us the echoes of his genius, a reminder that the universe is a puzzle waiting to be solved. Albert Einstein, the man who bent time and space. Imagine a world where time can stretch, space can curve, and the very fabric of reality bends under the weight of mass. This is the universe as seen through the eyes of Albert Einstein, a man whose genius reshaped our understanding of everything from the smallest particles to the vastness of the cosmos. Born in 1879 in Ulm, Germany, Einstein was a quiet, thoughtful child who would grow up to challenge the very foundations of physics. His journey from a patent clerk to the most celebrated scientist of the 20th century is a tale of curiosity, perseverance, and a relentless quest to uncover the secrets of the universe. But how did a man who once struggled in school become the symbol of scientific brilliance? What drove him to question the laws that governed reality itself? Let us step into the life of Albert Einstein, a figure whose ideas continue to echo through the halls of science. A reluctant student with a curious mind, Einstein's early years were marked by a quiet defiance of the rigid education system. As a child, he was slow to speak, and his teachers often mistook his introspective nature for laziness. Yet beneath this unassuming exterior lay a mind teeming with questions. At the age of 5, he was fascinated by a compass his father gave him, marveling at the invisible force that guided its needle. This simple object sparked a lifelong obsession with the unseen forces that shape our world. Despite his curiosity, Einstein struggled in school. He disliked rote learning and clashed with authoritarian teachers, leading to poor grades and a reputation as a daydreamer. At 16, he failed the entrance exam to the Swiss Federal Polytechnic in Zurich, a setback that might have discouraged others. But Einstein was undeterred. He enrolled in a Swiss school to improve his grades, and a year later was admitted to the Polytechnic. There, he immersed himself in physics and mathematics, though he often skipped classes to study on his own. It was during these years that he began to question the established theories of the time, particularly those of Isaac Newton, whose laws of motion and gravity had stood unchallenged for centuries. The miracle year, 1905, after graduating, Einstein found work as a patent clerk in Bern, Switzerland, a humble job that left him plenty of time to think. It was here in 1905 that he experienced what historians call his annus mirabilis, or miracle year. In a burst of creativity, Einstein published 4 groundbreaking papers that would change the course of science. The first paper introduced the concept of special relativity, which showed that time and space are not fixed, but relative to the observer's motion. This was a radical departure from Newton's absolute space and time. The second paper confirmed the existence of atoms, a theory still debated at the time, by explaining the erratic motion of particles in liquid. The third paper explored the photoelectric effect, laying the groundwork for quantum theory and earning him the Nobel Prize in 1921. And the fourth paper revealed the most famous equation in history, E's rho mc2, which showed that energy and mass are interchangeable, a concept that would later unlock the power of the atom. These papers were nothing short of revolutionary, yet they were met with skepticism by the scientific establishment. How could a young, unknown clerk overturn centuries of accepted wisdom? But Einstein's ideas were too powerful to ignore, and slowly the world began to take notice. The theory that changed everything. In 1915, Einstein unveiled his magnum opus, the theory of general relativity. This theory proposed that gravity is not a force between masses, as Newton had thought, but a curvature of space and time caused by mass and energy. It was a breathtaking leap of imagination, one that redefined our understanding of the universe. To test his theory, Einstein predicted that light from distant stars would bend as it passed near the sun, an effect that could be observed during a solar eclipse. In 1919, during an expedition led by Sir Arthur Eddington, this prediction was confirmed. Photographs of the eclipse showed stars' positions shifting exactly as Einstein had calculated, proving that space itself could bend. Overnight, Einstein became a global celebrity, his name synonymous with genius. But fame came with its own burdens. As his ideas spread, so did the scrutiny, and not all of it was scientific. In Germany, rising anti-Semitism cast a shadow over his achievements, with some dismissing his work as Jewish physics. The pacifist in a world at war Einstein's life was not just defined by his scientific pursuits, he was also a passionate advocate for peace and human rights. A committed pacifist, he spoke out against militarism and nationalism, even as the world plunged into the horrors of World War I. In 1933, with the rise of the Nazis, Einstein, who was Jewish, fled Germany for the United States, where he took a position at Princeton University. But the specter of war followed him. In 1939, fearing that Nazi Germany might develop an atomic bomb, Einstein signed a letter to President Roosevelt urging the U.S. to begin its own nuclear research. This letter helped spark the Manhattan Project, though Einstein himself was excluded from the effort due to his pacifist views. After the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, he was horrified by the destructive power of the weapon his theories had helped unleash, and he spent the rest of his life advocating for nuclear disarmament. The quest for a unified theory. In his later years, Einstein turned his attention to one of the great unsolved mysteries of physics, the search for a unified field theory, a single framework that could explain all the forces of nature. He believed that gravity and electromagnetism, the two known forces at the time, could be united under one theory, much as he had united space and time. But this quest proved elusive. While his colleagues explored the strange new world of quantum mechanics, Einstein remained skeptical, famously declaring, "God does not play dice with the universe." Despite his best efforts, Einstein never found his unified theory, and his reluctance to embrace quantum mechanics left him increasingly isolated from the scientific community. Yet his work continued to inspire new generations of physicists, and his dream of unification remains a driving force in theoretical physics today. Einstein's life was a tapestry of triumphs and struggles, of brilliant insights and human flaws. He was a man who saw the universe not as a collection of isolated phenomena, but as a harmonious whole, governed by laws waiting to be discovered. His legacy is not just in the equations he left behind, but in the way he taught us to think, to question, to imagine, and to seek the beauty in the unknown. As we reflect on his journey, we are reminded that the pursuit of knowledge is a journey without end, a path that leads us ever closer to the stars. Marie Curie, the pioneer of the atomic age. Imagine a dimly lit laboratory where the air is thick with the scent of chemicals and the quiet hum of scientific curiosity. In this space, a woman with piercing blue eyes and a determined expression works tirelessly, her hands deftly handling glass vials and strange glowing substances. This is Marie Curie, a scientist whose brilliance and perseverance would illuminate the path to understanding the invisible forces of the universe. Her journey is one of passion, sacrifice, and groundbreaking discovery, a story that reshaped science and medicine, yet came at a profound personal cost. But what drove this remarkable woman to pursue a field so perilous and uncharted? And how did she overcome the barriers of her time to become one of history's most celebrated scientists? Let us step into the world of Marie Curie, a figure whose legacy continues to radiate through the ages. A spark ignited in Warsaw. Our story begins in 1867, in the heart of Warsaw, Poland, where Maria Skłodowska was born into a family of educators. From a young age, she was captivated by the wonders of science, a passion nurtured by her father, who taught physics and mathematics. But Poland, under Russian rule, offered few opportunities for women in academia. Undeterred, young Maria dreamed of studying at the prestigious Sorbonne in Paris, a beacon of scientific progress. At 24, she made the bold decision to leave her homeland, arriving in Paris with little more than her determination and a thirst for knowledge. Enrolling at the Sorbonne, she immersed herself in physics and chemistry, often studying late into the night in her modest attic room. It was here that she met Pierre Curie, a brilliant physicist who would become her partner in both life and science. Their shared love for discovery blossomed into a deep bond, and in 1895 they married embarking on a journey that would change the world. The glow of discovery. In the late 1890s, the scientific community was abuzz with the recent discovery of X rays by Wilhelm Röntgen. Inspired by this breakthrough, Marie turned her attention to the mysterious rays emitted by uranium, a phenomenon discovered by Henri Becquerel. She coined the term radioactivity to describe this invisible energy, and with Pierre by her side, she set out to unravel its secrets. Their research led them to a groundbreaking realization: radioactivity was not just a property of uranium, but a fundamental characteristic of certain elements. In 1898, after months of painstaking work, they isolated two new elements: polonium, named after Marie's homeland, and radium, which glowed with an eerie, otherworldly light. These discoveries were nothing short of revolutionary, revealing a hidden world of atomic energy that would transform science and medicine. But the path to discovery was fraught with danger. Unaware of the risks, Marie and Pierre worked with radioactive materials without protection, their hands often blistered and scarred from exposure. They labored in a makeshift laboratory, a dilapidated shed with a leaking roof, their dedication unwavering despite the harsh conditions. Their perseverance paid off in 1903 when they were awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics, shared with Becquerel, for their work on radioactivity. Marie became the first woman to receive a Nobel Prize, a testament to her brilliance and tenacity. Triumph and tragedy, yet triumph was soon shadowed by tragedy. In 1906, Pierre was killed in a tragic accident, struck by a horse-drawn carriage on a rainy Paris street. Marie was devastated, left to raise their two daughters alone and to continue their shared work. But she refused to be broken. Channeling her grief into determination, she took over Pierre's professorship at the Sorbonne, becoming the first woman to teach there. In 1911, Marie's relentless pursuit of knowledge was recognized once more when she won a second Nobel Prize, this time in chemistry, for her discovery of radium and polonium. She remains the only person to have won Nobel Prizes in two different scientific fields, a feat unmatched to this day. But her achievements came at a cost. The radioactive materials she so passionately studied were slowly poisoning her, their invisible rays seeping into her bones. A legacy forged in war. When World War I erupted, Marie saw an opportunity to use her scientific expertise to serve humanity. She developed mobile radiography units, known as Petite Curie, which brought X-ray technology to the battlefield, helping doctors locate shrapnel and bullets in wounded soldiers. Alongside her daughter Irene, she trained nurses and operated these units herself, often working just miles from the front lines. Her courage and innovation saved countless lives, proving that science could be a force for healing even in the darkest times. But Marie's dedication to her work took a toll. Years of exposure to radiation had weakened her body, and she suffered from chronic illnesses. Yet she continued to push forward, driven by an insatiable curiosity and a desire to unlock the mysteries of the atom. In her later years, she became a global ambassador for science, traveling to the United States to raise funds for her research and inspiring a new generation of scientists. The price of brilliance. Marie Curie's life was a testament to the power of perseverance and the pursuit of knowledge, but it was also a cautionary tale. The very elements she discovered would ultimately claim her life. In 1934, She succumbed to aplastic anemia, a condition likely caused by her prolonged exposure to radiation. Even in death, her legacy was tinged with the dangers of her work. Her notebooks, still radioactive, are kept in lead lined boxes, and researchers must wear protective gear to handle them. Yet Marie's contributions to science and medicine are immeasurable. Her discoveries paved the way for advancements in cancer treatment, nuclear energy, and our understanding of atomic structure. She broke barriers for women in science, proving that brilliance knows no gender. Her story is one of courage, sacrifice, and the relentless pursuit of truth, a reminder that the quest for knowledge often comes with a price, but its rewards can illuminate the world for generations to come. Charles Darwin, the explorer of life's origins. Imagine a world where the mysteries of life were locked behind the doors of tradition, where the origins of species were explained not by science, but by scripture. Into this world stepped a quiet, unassuming man whose curiosity would unlock the secrets of evolution and forever change our understanding of life on Earth. This is the story of Charles Darwin, a naturalist whose journey from the shores of England to the remote islands of the Galapagos would lead to one of the most revolutionary ideas in history. But what drove this young man to question the very fabric of existence? How did a simple voyage transform into a lifelong quest for truth? Let us embark on a journey through time to uncover the life and legacy of Charles Darwin, a figure whose ideas continue to shape our world. A curious mind in a world of tradition. Our story begins on February 12th, 1809, in the quiet town of Shrewsbury, England, where Charles Robert Darwin was born into a family of wealth and intellect. His father, Robert Darwin, was a successful physician, and his mother, Susanna Wedgwood, hailed from the famous pottery family. From an early age, Charles was surrounded by the wonders of nature, collecting shells, minerals, and even dissecting small animals with a keen eye for detail. Yet despite his fascination with the natural world, his path seemed destined for medicine, following in his father's footsteps. At 16, Charles was sent to the University of Edinburgh to study medicine, but the sight of blood and the brutality of surgery repelled him. His heart was not in it. Instead, he found solace in the lectures of naturalists and the company of like-minded friends who shared his passion for collecting specimens. Recognizing his son's disinterest in medicine, Robert Darwin sent Charles to Cambridge University to study theology, hoping he would become a clergyman. But even at Cambridge, Charles's true calling lay elsewhere. It was here that he met John Stevens Henslow, a professor of botany, who would change the course of his life. Henslow saw potential in the young Darwin and recommended him for a position that would become the adventure of a lifetime. Naturalist aboard the HMS Beagle, a ship set to chart the coastlines of South America. At just 22 years old, Charles Darwin stepped aboard the Beagle, embarking on a voyage that would take him to the ends of the earth and into the depths of scientific discovery. The voyage that changed everything. On December 27th, 1831, the HMS Beagle set sail from Plymouth, England, with Darwin aboard. Over the next 5 years, the ship would journey across the Atlantic, down the coast of South America, to the Galapagos Islands, and beyond to Tahiti, Australia, and the Cape of Good Hope. For Darwin, this was not just a voyage of exploration, but a voyage of the mind. Every stop was an opportunity to observe, collect, and question. In South America, Darwin marveled at the diversity of life, from the lush rainforests of Brazil to the desolate plains of Patagonia. He unearthed fossils of giant mammals, long extinct, and pondered their resemblance to modern species. Why did these ancient creatures look so similar to those alive today? What forces had shaped their existence? And these questions lingered in his mind, planting the seeds of doubt about the prevailing belief in the fixity of species. But it was in the Galapagos Islands, a volcanic archipelago off the coast of Ecuador, that Darwin's observations would crystallize into a revolutionary idea. Here, he encountered species found nowhere else on Earth: giant tortoises, marine iguanas, and most famously, finches. Each island had its own variety of finch, with beaks adapted to different food sources. Some had strong, thick beaks for cracking nuts, while others had slender beaks for catching insects. This variation puzzled Darwin. If all species were created separately, why were these birds so similar, yet distinctly adapted to their environments? As the Beagle sailed onward, Darwin's notebooks filled with sketches, observations, and questions. He was beginning to see a pattern, a thread connecting all living things. But it would take years of reflection and study to weave these threads into a coherent theory. The birth of a theory. Upon returning to England in 1836, Darwin was a changed man. The voyage had transformed him from a curious collector into a serious scientist with a burning question: how do species change over time? He settled into a quiet life, marrying his cousin Emma Wedgwood in 1839, and eventually fathering 10 children. But beneath this domestic tranquility, his mind was a whirlwind of ideas. Darwin spent the next 2 decades meticulously analyzing his findings, corresponding with other scientists, and conducting experiments. He bred pigeons to study variation, examined barnacles to understand species classification, and delved into the works of economists like Thomas Malthus, whose ideas about population growth and competition inspired a crucial insight. Malthus argued that populations grow faster than resources, leading to a struggle for survival. Darwin realized that this struggle could explain how species evolve through a process he called natural selection. According to Darwin, individuals with traits better suited to their environment are more likely to survive and reproduce, passing those traits to their offspring. Over time, these small changes accumulate, leading to the emergence of new species. It was a simple yet profound idea, one that explained the diversity of life without the need for divine intervention. But Darwin knew his theory would be controversial. He hesitated to publish, fearing the backlash from both the scientific community and the church. A book that shook the world. In 1858, Darwin's hand was forced. He received a letter from Alfred Russel Wallace, a young naturalist working in Malaysia, outlining a theory of evolution strikingly similar to his own. Realizing that his life's work was at risk of being overshadowed, Darwin decided it was time to share his ideas with the world. On November 24th, 1859, he published On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, a book that would send shockwaves through science and society. The Origin of Species was an instant sensation, selling out on the first day and sparking fierce debates. Some hailed it as a masterpiece, a new lens through which to view the natural world. Others condemned it as heresy, a direct challenge to the biblical account of creation. Darwin himself stayed out of the public fray. preferring to let his work speak for itself. But the controversy raged on, with figures like Thomas Henry Huxley, known as Darwin's bulldog, defending the theory against its critics. Despite the uproar, Darwin continued to refine his ideas. In 1871, he published The Descent of Man, applying his theory to human evolution and suggesting that humans and apes share a common ancestor. This was perhaps his most provocative work, striking at the heart of humanity's self-image. Yet, Darwin's tone was always measured, his arguments grounded in evidence rather than rhetoric. He was not a firebrand, but a careful observer, a man who let nature reveal its secrets. A life of quiet reflection. In his later years, Darwin retreated to his home in Down House, Kent, where he lived a life of quiet reflection and continued study. He turned his attention to plants, writing books on topics like fertilization, insectivorous plants, and the movements of climbing vines. His love for nature never waned, and he often spent hours in his garden, observing the smallest details of life. Darwin's health, however, was fragile. He suffered from chronic illnesses, likely exacerbated by the stress of his work and the controversy it generated. Yet he remained devoted to his family, a loving husband and father who took joy in the simple pleasures of life. His marriage to Emma, a devout Christian, was a source of strength, even as their differing beliefs sometimes caused tension. Emma worried for his soul, but Darwin's faith in science never wavered. On April 19, 1882, Charles Darwin passed away at the age of 73, leaving behind a legacy that would endure for centuries. He was buried in Westminster Abbey, a fitting resting place for a man whose ideas had transformed the world. Darwin's theory of evolution by natural selection is now the cornerstone of modern biology, a framework that explains the diversity and complexity of life on Earth. His work shattered the boundaries of knowledge, opening new frontiers in genetics, ecology, and anthropology. But beyond his scientific achievements, Darwin's life is a testament to the power of curiosity, the courage to question, and the perseverance to seek truth, even in the face of doubt and opposition. Louis Pasteur, the hunter of microbes. Imagine a time when the world was a battlefield, not just of armies, but of invisible enemies. In the 19th century, diseases like rabies, anthrax, and cholera ravaged towns and villages, leaving death and despair in their wake. Doctors and scientists groped in the dark, their understanding of illness mired in mystery and superstition. Into this world stepped a man whose keen mind and relentless curiosity would pierce the veil of ignorance, revealing a hidden universe of microscopic life. This is the story of Louis Pasteur, a scientist whose discoveries would save millions of lives and forever change the course of medicine. But what drove this unassuming Frenchman to wage war against the unseen? And how did he transform our understanding of disease, fermentation, and the very nature of life itself? Let us journey back to a time when the line between science and magic was blurred, and one man's vision brought clarity to the chaos. A reluctant scientist with an artist's eye. Our story begins in 1822 in the small town of Dole, France, where Louis Pasteur was born to a humble tanner and his wife. As a child, Louis showed little interest in the family trade, preferring instead to sketch portraits and landscapes with a talent that hinted at a future in art. His early education was unremarkable, and his teachers saw no spark of genius in the quiet boy. Yet, beneath this modest exterior lay a mind hungry for knowledge. a curiosity that would soon find its true calling. At the urging of his father, Pasteur pursued chemistry and physics, subjects that seemed worlds away from his artistic inclinations. But it was in the laboratory that he found his canvas. His first breakthrough came in 1848 when he discovered the molecular asymmetry of crystals, a revelation that earned him recognition in scientific circles. This early success was a glimpse of the brilliance to come, but Pasteur's path was not without its detours. He was not a natural scientist. He was a meticulous observer, a man who saw patterns where others saw chaos. The battle against spontaneous generation. In the mid 19th century, the scientific community was embroiled in a fierce debate. Did life arise spontaneously from non living matter, or was there another explanation? The theory of spontaneous generation, which held that organisms could emerge from decaying material, was widely accepted. But Pasteur, ever the skeptic, set out to disprove it. In a series of elegant experiments, Pasteur demonstrated that microorganisms did not appear out of thin air, but were carried by dust and air currents. He designed swan-necked flasks that allowed air to enter but trapped microbes in the curved neck, showing that broth remained sterile unless contaminated. His findings were a death blow to spontaneous generation, proving that life comes only from life. This was more than a scientific victory. It was a paradigm shift, one that laid the groundwork for the germ theory of disease. The mystery of fermentation. Pasteur's curiosity soon turned to the process of fermentation, a subject of great economic importance in France's wine and beer industries. At the time, fermentation was thought to be a purely chemical reaction, but Pasteur suspected otherwise. Through his microscope, he observed tiny organisms, yeasts and bacteria, at work, transforming sugar into alcohol and other products. He realized that fermentation was a biological process driven by these microscopic life forms. This insight led to the development of pasteurization, a method of heating liquids to kill harmful microbes without destroying the product. Today, pasteurization is a household term, but in Pasteur's time, it was a revolutionary concept that saved industries and lives. Yet Pasteur's work on fermentation was just at the beginning of his microbial odyssey. The germ theory of disease. As Pasteur delved deeper into the world of microbes, he began to connect the dots between these tiny organisms and the spread of disease. The idea that germs could cause illness was not new, but it was Pasteur who provided the definitive evidence. His experiments with anthrax, a deadly disease affecting livestock, were a turning point. In a dramatic public demonstration in 1881, Pasteur vaccinated a group of sheep with a weakened strain of the anthrax bacterium. When exposed to the full-strength disease, the vaccinated sheep remained healthy, while the unvaccinated ones perished. The experiment was a triumph, not just for Pasteur, but for the germ theory itself. It was a moment that silenced his critics and cemented his reputation as a scientific pioneer. The race for a rabies vaccine. Pasteur's most famous and most daring achievement came in the fight against rabies, a terrifying disease that drove its victims to madness and death. Rabies was a mystery. Its cause was unknown, and there was no cure. But Pasteur, undaunted, set out to find a vaccine. Working with the spinal cords of infected rabbits, he developed a weakened form of the virus that could be used to immunize against the disease. The stakes were high. failure could mean death. In 1885, a young boy named Joseph Meister was brought to Pasteur's laboratory, bitten by a rabid dog and facing certain death. With no time to lose, Pasteur administered his experimental vaccine, and the treatment was a success. Joseph survived, and Pasteur's vaccine became a beacon of hope, a life of dedication and legacy. Pasteur's contributions to science were not just in his discoveries, but in his method. He was a master of the scientific process, combining rigorous experimentation with keen observation. His work ethic was legendary. He once said, "In the fields of observation, chance favors only the prepared mind." This mantra guided his every step, from the smallest experiment to the grandest theory. But Pasteur's legacy extends beyond his scientific achievements. He founded the Pasteur Institute in 1887, a research center that continues to be at the forefront of microbiology and immunology. His discoveries paved the way for modern vaccines, antibiotics, and our understanding of infectious diseases. In a world still grappling with pandemics and pathogens, Pasteur's work remains as relevant as ever. Pasteur's life was a testament to the power of curiosity and perseverance. He was a man who saw the invisible, who dared to question the accepted wisdom of his time, and who, through his dedication, brought light to the darkest corners of science. His story reminds us that the greatest discoveries often come not from those who seek fame or fortune, but from those who seek to understand the world around them. As we reflect on his journey, we are left with a sense of wonder at the impact one person can have on the course of history, and a reminder that the pursuit of knowledge is a journey without end. Alan Turing, the father of modern computing. Imagine a world on the brink of collapse where the fate of nations hangs in the balance, and the key to victory lies not in the hands of generals or politicians, but in the mind of a quiet, unassuming mathematician. This is the story of Alan Turing, a man whose genius would crack the codes of war, lay the foundations of computer science, and challenge our understanding of what it means to be human. Yet, for all his brilliance, Turing's life was marked by tragedy, a tale of triumph and persecution, of a mind that saw further than most, but was ultimately betrayed by the society he helped save. How did a boy with a passion for numbers become one of the most influential figures in modern history? And what secrets did he unlock that continue to shape our world today? Let us journey through the life of Alan Turing, a figure whose legacy is as complex as the machines he envisioned. A prodigy in the making, Alan Matheson Turing was born on June 23, 1912, in London, England, into a family of modest means but high expectations. From an early age, it was clear that Turing was no ordinary child. He taught himself to read in just 3 weeks and showed an uncanny aptitude for numbers and puzzles. Yet his brilliance was often overshadowed by his awkwardness. He was a loner, more comfortable with equations than with people. His teachers recognized his potential, but were frustrated by his disregard for subjects that didn't interest him. Mathematics, however, was his sanctuary, a world where logic reigned and answers were absolute. At 16, Turing enrolled at Sherborne School, where he encountered a formative influence, Christopher Morcom, a fellow student who shared his love for science. Morcom's untimely death from tuberculosis in 1930 devastated Turing, leaving him grappling with questions of life, death, and the nature of consciousness. This tragedy would haunt him for years, fueling his later work on artificial intelligence. But in the immediate aftermath, it drove him deeper into his studies, seeking solace in the certainty of numbers. In 1931, Turing entered King's College, Cambridge, where he thrived in the intellectually stimulating environment. He graduated with first-class honors in mathematics and was elected a fellow at the age of 22. It was here in the quiet halls of Cambridge that Turing began to explore the frontiers of logic and computation, setting the stage for his greatest contributions. The birth of the Turing machine. In 1936, at just 24 years old, Turing published a paper that would revolutionize the world of mathematics and lay the groundwork for modern computing. Titled On Computable Numbers, with an application to the Entscheidungsproblem, the paper introduced the concept of a theoretical device now known as the Turing machine. This abstract machine, capable of performing any computation given enough time and resources, was a breakthrough in understanding what could be computed and what could not. The Turing machine was not a physical device, but a mathematical model, a way to formalize the idea of an algorithm. It consisted of an infinite tape divided into cells, each containing a symbol and a head that could read, write, and move along the tape based on a set of rules. This simple yet powerful concept demonstrated that any problem that could be solved by an algorithm could be solved by a Turing machine, establishing the theoretical foundation for all future computers. But Turing's work was not just about machines. It was about the limits of human knowledge. He showed that there are problems that no machine, no matter how advanced, can solve, a revelation that shook the foundations of mathematics. His paper also introduced the idea of a universal machine, one that could simulate any other machine, foreshadowing the development of general-purpose computers. Yet as the world stood on the brink of war, Turing's theoretical genius would soon be called upon for a more urgent task, cracking the enigma. In 1939, as World War II engulfed Europe, Turing was recruited to Bletchley Park, the top-secret headquarters of Britain's code-breaking efforts. His mission, to decipher the Enigma machine, a device used by the German military to encrypt their communications. The Enigma was considered unbreakable, its codes changing daily with billions of possible combinations. The stakes were immense. Cracking it could turn the tide of the war. Turing approached the problem with characteristic brilliance. He realized that the key to breaking Enigma lay not in brute force, but in exploiting its weaknesses. He designed an electromechanical device called the bomb, which could test thousands of possible Enigma settings at lightning speed. By 1940, Turing and his team had cracked the code, giving the Allies unprecedented access to German military plans. The impact was staggering. It is estimated that Turing's work shortened the war by at least 2 years, saving millions of lives. Yet for all his contributions, his role remained shrouded in secrecy. The world would not learn of his wartime heroics until decades later, long after his death. But even as he basked in the quiet satisfaction of victory, Turing's mind was already turning to new frontiers. The dawn of artificial intelligence. After the war, Turing's focus shifted to a question that had haunted him since his youth. Could machines think? In 1950, he published a seminal paper, Computing Machinery and Intelligence, in which he proposed what is now known as the Turing test. The test was simple. If a machine could engage in a conversation indistinguishable from that of a human, it could be said to be thinking. This idea was revolutionary, sparking debates that continue to this day about the nature of intelligence and consciousness. Turing envisioned a future where machines could learn, adapt, and perhaps even surpass human intelligence. He worked tirelessly on early computers, including the automatic computing engine ACE, one of the first designs for a general purpose computer. His ideas were far ahead of his time, laying the groundwork for the field of artificial intelligence. But as he pushed the boundaries of science, his personal life was about to unravel. A life unraveled. In 1952, Turing's world came crashing down. He was arrested for gross indecency after admitting to a relationship with a man, a criminal offense in Britain at the time. Convicted and faced with imprisonment, he chose chemical castration as an alternative, enduring hormone treatments that left him physically and emotionally scarred. The man who had helped save the world was now a pariah, stripped of his security clearance and ostracized by the society he had served. The persecution took its toll. On June 7th, 1954, at the age of 41, Alan Turing was found dead in his home, a victim of cyanide poisoning. The official verdict was suicide, though some believe it was an accident. His death was a tragic end to a life that had given so much to humanity. For decades, his contributions remained in the shadows, his name tarnished by the injustice he suffered. A legacy reclaimed. In the years following his death, Turing's work gained the recognition it deserved. The Turing machine became the cornerstone of computer science, and his ideas on artificial intelligence inspired generations of researchers. In 1966, the Turing Award was established, often called the Nobel Prize of Computing, honoring his enduring impact on technology. But it was not until 2009 that the British government formally apologized for its treatment of Turing, and in 2013 he was posthumously pardoned by Queen Elizabeth II. Today, Turing is celebrated as a hero, his life a testament to the power of intellect and the perils of prejudice. His story reminds us that genius often comes at a cost, and that society's greatest minds are not always treated with the respect they deserve. As we reflect on Turing's journey, we are left with a sense of awe at the breadth of his contributions and the depth of his struggles. He was a man who saw the future, who dared to imagine machines that could think, and who, in his own quiet way, changed the world. His legacy is not just in the computers we use or the codes we crack, but in the questions he left us. What does it mean to be intelligent? What does it mean to be human? These are the mysteries that continue to drive us long after Turing's untimely end. Nicolaus Copernicus, the revolutionary astronomer. Imagine a world where the Earth stood still, anchored at the center of the universe, with the sun, stars, and planets dutifully orbiting around it. This was the accepted truth for over 1,000 years, a truth upheld by scholars, astronomers, and the powerful church. But in the quiet corners of Renaissance Europe, one man dared to imagine a different reality. His name was Nicolaus Copernicus, and his vision of the cosmos would shake the very foundations of science and religion. This is the story of a humble cleric who, with a telescope in one hand and a quill in the other, rewrote the stars. But what drove him to challenge the wisdom of his time? And how did he navigate a world where new ideas could be seen as heresy? Let us journey back to a time of discovery and dogma to uncover the life and legacy of the man who set the earth in motion. a scholar in a world of tradition. Our story begins in 1473 in the Polish city of Torun, where Nicolaus Copernicus was born into a family of merchants. Orphaned at a young age, he was raised by his uncle, Lucas Watzenrode, a bishop who ensured he received the finest education. Young Copernicus was sent to the University of Krakow, a hub of Renaissance learning, where he studied mathematics, astronomy, and the classics. But it was in Italy, at the universities of Bologna, Padua, and Ferrara, that his mind truly began to soar. Here, amidst the rediscovery of ancient Greek and Roman texts, Copernicus encountered the works of astronomers like Ptolemy, whose geocentric model had dominated for centuries, and Aristarchus, who had dared to suggest that the sun, not the earth, was the center of the universe. These ideas planted a seed of doubt in Copernicus's mind. The geocentric model, with its complex system of epicycles and deferents, seemed cumbersome and inelegant. Surely, he thought, there must be a simpler way to explain the movements of the heavens. But questioning the established order was dangerous. The Church's teachings were clear. Earth was the center of God's creation, and to suggest otherwise was to challenge divine truth. So Copernicus, a devout Catholic, had to tread carefully. A canon with a secret. Upon returning to Poland, Copernicus took up a position as a canon at Frombork Cathedral, a role that provided him with a steady income and, more importantly, time to pursue his true passion, astronomy. In a small tower overlooking the Baltic Sea, he built a modest observatory where he spent countless nights charting the stars and planets. The more he observed, the more convinced he became that the geocentric model was flawed. The movements of the planets, especially their retrograde motion, could be explained far more simply if the sun were at the center. But Copernicus was not a revolutionary by nature. He was cautious, aware of the risks his ideas posed. For years, he shared his thoughts only with close friends and fellow astronomers, refining his calculations and building his case. He knew that to publish his theory would invite ridicule from his peers, and worse, condemnation from the Church. Yet the truth gnawed at him, a secret too profound to keep hidden. The birth of a new cosmos in 1539, a young mathematician named Georg Joachim Rheticus arrived at Copernicus's door, eager to learn from the aging scholar. Rheticus was captivated by Copernicus's heliocentric model and urged him to share it with the world. After much hesitation, Copernicus agreed, and in 1543, just before his death, De Revolutionibus Orbium Coelestium, on the revolutions of the celestial spheres, was published. Legend has it that Copernicus saw the first copy of his book on his deathbed, a final glimpse of the work that would change history. The book was a masterpiece of mathematical precision, presenting a new vision of the cosmos with the sun at its heart. But its impact was not immediate. Many astronomers admired the elegance of Copernicus's model, but saw it as a mathematical tool rather than a physical reality. The Church, too, was slow to react, but in 1616, De Revolutionibus was placed on the Index of Forbidden Books, where it remained for over 200 years. Yet despite the controversy, Copernicus's ideas took root, inspiring future giants like Galileo, Kepler, and Newton to build upon his foundation. A Renaissance man. While Copernicus is best known for his astronomical work, he was a true polymath, his intellect spanning multiple disciplines. He made significant contributions to economics, formulating the quantity theory of money, which explains how the value of currency is tied to its supply. He also translated Greek poetry into Latin and served as a physician, tending to the sick in his community. His life was a testament to the Renaissance ideal of the well-rounded scholar, a man whose curiosity knew no bounds. Yet for all his achievements, Copernicus remained a private figure. He never married, though he shared a close relationship with his housekeeper, Anna Schilling, which sparked rumors and disapproval among his colleagues. Despite the whispers, he stayed devoted to his faith and his work, seeing no conflict between his scientific pursuits and his role as a canon. In many ways, his life was a delicate balance between tradition and innovation, a dance between the known and the unknown. A legacy written in the stars. Copernicus's heliocentric model was more than a scientific theory. It was the spark that ignited the scientific revolution. His courage to question the accepted wisdom of his time paved the way for a new era of discovery, where observation and reason triumphed over dogma. Today, his legacy lives on in every planetarium, every astronomy textbook, and every space mission that ventures beyond our worlds. His story reminds us that the pursuit of truth often requires us to challenge the status quo, to look beyond what is known, and to imagine what might be. What if Copernicus had never published his work? How different might our understanding of the universe be today? And what other truths lie waiting to be discovered if only we have the courage to look? Galileo Galilei, the stargazer who defied the church, picture a world where the earth stands still at the center of the universe, a truth as unshakable as the ground beneath your feet. The sun, the moon, and the stars all revolve around it, just as the ancient Greeks and the mighty church have taught for centuries. But in the heart of Renaissance Italy, one man dared to look up and see a different reality. His name was Galileo Galilei, and his gaze would forever change how we understand the cosmos. This is the story of a scientist whose curiosity knew no bounds, whose discoveries shook the foundations of knowledge, and whose courage in the face of dogma would make him a legend. But how did a curious boy from Pisa become the father of modern science? And what price did he pay for challenging the wisdom of his time? Let us journey back to an era of discovery and danger, where the stars held secrets waiting to be unveiled. A Curious Mind in Pisa. Our story begins in 1564 in the bustling city of Pisa, where Galileo Galilei was born to a family of musicians and scholars. From a young age, Galileo was captivated by the world around him. As a child, he would sit in the cathedral, mesmerized not by the sermons, but by the rhythmic swinging of a chandelier, a simple observation that would later inspire his groundbreaking work on pendulums. His father, a lutenist and music theorist, nurtured his curiosity, teaching him to question everything and to seek truth through observation. At 18, Galileo enrolled at the University of Pisa to study medicine, but his heart was not in it. Instead, he found himself drawn to mathematics and physics, sneaking into lectures and devouring books on the side. His professors were baffled by his unorthodox approach. He was more interested in why things fell than in memorizing ancient texts. It was during one such moment of distraction that he noticed how objects of different weights fell at the same speed, a discovery that challenged the teachings of Aristotle and set him on a path of scientific rebellion. The telescope and the heavens unveiled. In 1609, Galileo's life took a dramatic turn. He heard rumors of a Dutch invention, a telescope that could make distant objects appear closer. With characteristic ingenuity, he built his own, improving its design to magnify objects up to 30 times. But Galileo did not aim his telescope at earthly wonders. He turned it toward the night sky, and what he saw would change the course of history. Through his lens, the moon was no longer a smooth divine sphere, but a rugged landscape of mountains and craters. The Milky Way dissolved into countless stars, and Jupiter revealed 4 moons of its own dancing in orbit. Most astonishing of all, Venus showed phases like the moon, proving that it revolved around the sun, not the Earth. These discoveries were nothing short of revolutionary, providing compelling evidence for the heliocentric model proposed by Copernicus decades earlier. Galileo's observations shattered the geocentric worldview, revealing a universe far more complex and dynamic than anyone had imagined. But with great discovery came great risk. Galileo knew that his findings would not sit well with the powerful Catholic Church, which held that the earth was the immovable center of God's creation. Yet, he could not keep silent. In 1610, he published The Starry Messenger, a book that sent shockwaves through Europe. Scholars marveled at his observations, but the church grew wary. How could one man's telescope challenge centuries of doctrine? And what would happen if his ideas spread? A clash of titans, science versus faith. Galileo's relationship with the church was a delicate dance. As a devout Catholic, he believed that science and faith could coexist, that the Bible was not a scientific text, but a guide to spiritual truth. He argued that the wonders of the universe were a testament to God's grandeur, not a threat to it. But the Church saw things differently. In 1616, the Inquisition declared the heliocentric model heretical, and Galileo was warned to abandon his support for it. For a time, Galileo complied, focusing on other scientific pursuits. He wrote about the laws of motion, describing how objects accelerate and how projectiles follow parabolic paths, work that would later influence Isaac Newton. But the call of the stars was too strong. In the 1632, he published Dialogue Concerning the Two Chief World Systems, a book that cleverly presented the heliocentric model as a mere hypothesis, but was clearly a defense of it. The Church was not amused the trial that shook the world. In 1633, Galileo was summoned to Rome to stand trial for heresy. At 69 years old, frail and ailing, he faced the full might of the Inquisition. The trial was a spectacle, with Galileo's own words used against him. He was accused of defying the Church's authority and spreading dangerous ideas. Under threat of torture, he was forced to recant his beliefs, to declare that the earth did not move. Legend has it that as he rose from his knees, he muttered, "Eppur si muove," and yet it moves. The verdict was harsh. Galileo was sentenced to house arrest for the remainder of his life. Confined to his villa in Arcetri, he was forbidden to publish or teach, yet even in isolation, his mind remained free. During these final years, he wrote 2 new sciences, a masterpiece that laid the foundations for modern physics. It was smuggled out of Italy and published in Holland, ensuring that his ideas would endure. A legacy that transcends time. Galileo Galilei passed away on January 8, 1642, but his legacy was just beginning. His telescopic discoveries opened new frontiers in astronomy, while his experiments with motion paved the way for Newton's laws. More than that, His courage to question and his insistence on empirical evidence became the cornerstone of the scientific method. He taught us that truth is not handed down from authority, but discovered through observation and reason. In 1992, 350 years after his death, the Catholic Church formally acknowledged its error in condemning Galileo, a belated recognition of his genius. Today, his name is synonymous with the spirit of inquiry, a reminder that the pursuit of knowledge often requires us to challenge the status quo. His story leaves us with a question: what other truths lie waiting to be discovered, if only we have the courage to look? Niels Bohr, the quantum pioneer. Imagine a world where the very fabric of reality bends and twists, where particles exist in multiple states at once, and where the act of observation can change the outcome of an experiment. This is the strange and wondrous realm of quantum mechanics, a field that has baffled and inspired scientists for over a century. At the heart of this revolution was a man whose intellect and vision helped unlock the secrets of the atomic world. His name was Niels Bohr, a physicist whose work not only reshaped our understanding of the universe, but also grappled with the profound ethical dilemmas of his time. But how did a young Danish scientist rise to become one of the most influential figures in modern physics? And what drove him to confront the moral challenges of the atomic age? Let us journey back to a time of discovery and debate to uncover the life and legacy of a man who dared to explore the quantum frontier. A spark ignited in Copenhagen. Our story begins in 1885 in the vibrant city of Copenhagen, Denmark, where Niels Henrik David Bohr was born into a family of academics. His father, a renowned physiology professor, and his mother from a wealthy Jewish family, nurtured a love of learning in young Niels. From an early age, he was drawn to the mysteries of the natural world, often conducting experiments in his father's laboratory. But it was at the University of Copenhagen that Bohr's passion for physics truly blossomed. Under the guidance of Christian Christensen, Denmark's only physics professor at the time, Bohr delved into the study of thermodynamics and electromagnetism, his mind alight with curiosity. In 1911, after earning his doctorate, Bohr traveled to England to work with the great J.J. Thomson at Cambridge, the discoverer of the electron. But it was his meeting with Ernest Rutherford in Manchester that would change the course of his career. Rutherford had recently proposed a new model of the atom with a dense nucleus orbited by electrons, but the model had a flaw. According to classical physics, the electrons should spiral into the nucleus, causing the atom to collapse. Bohr was captivated by this puzzle and set out to solve it. The birth of the quantum atom. In 1913, Bohr returned to Copenhagen with a radical idea. Drawing on Max Planck's quantum theory, which suggested that energy is emitted in discrete packets called quanta, Bohr proposed a new atomic model. In his model, electrons orbit the nucleus at specific energy levels, jumping from one level to another by absorbing or emitting quanta of energy. This explained why atoms are stable and why they emit light at specific wavelengths, a phenomenon that had baffled scientists for decades. Bohr's model was a breakthrough, a bridge between the classical physics of Newton and the emerging quantum world. It earned him the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1922 and established him as a leading figure in the scientific community. But Bohr's vision extended beyond his own work. In 1920, he founded the Institute for Theoretical Physics in Copenhagen, a hub for the brightest minds in physics. It was here that Bohr mentored a generation of scientists, including Werner Heisenberg, Wolfgang Pauli, and Enrico Fermi, fostering an environment of collaboration and debate that would shape the future of quantum mechanics. The Copenhagen interpretation. As quantum mechanics evolved, so did the debates surrounding its interpretation. At the heart of these discussions was Bohr, who, along with Heisenberg, developed what became known as the Copenhagen interpretation. This framework posited that particles exist in a state of probability until observed, at which point their properties become definite. It was a radical departure from classical determinism, suggesting that at the quantum level, reality is inherently uncertain. But not everyone was convinced. Albert Einstein, Bohr's friend and intellectual rival, famously rejected this idea, insisting that God does not play dice with the universe. The two engaged in a series of debates that would become legendary, with Bohr defending the probabilistic nature of quantum mechanics and Einstein arguing for a more complete, deterministic theory. These exchanges, though never fully resolved, pushed both men to refine their ideas and deepened our understanding of the quantum world. Bohr's ability to challenge even the greatest minds of his time showcased his intellectual rigor and his unwavering commitment to the pursuit of truth. A moral compass in a time of war. As the 1930s gave way to the horrors of World War II's, Bohr's focus shifted from the mysteries of the atom to the looming threat of nuclear weapons. In 1939, he learned of the discovery of nuclear fission and immediately grasped its potential for both creation and destruction. When Denmark was occupied by Nazi Germany in 1940, Bohr, who was of Jewish descent, found himself in a precarious position. Yet he remained at his institute, using his influence to protect his colleagues and continue his work. In 1943, as the threat to his safety grew, Bohr escaped to Sweden in a daring nighttime boat ride, eventually making his way to the United States. There, he joined the Manhattan Project, the top secret effort to develop the atomic bomb. But Bohr's involvement was not without conflict. He feared the destructive power of the bomb and advocated for international cooperation to control nuclear weapons. His pleas for openness and collaboration, however, were met with suspicion in the tense climate of the Cold War. A legacy of curiosity and courage. After the war, Bohr returned to Denmark, where he continued to champion the peaceful use of nuclear energy and the importance of scientific freedom. He played a key role in the establishment of CERN, the European Organization for Nuclear Research, and remained a vocal advocate for international scientific cooperation until his death in 1962. Bohr's contributions to science are immeasurable. His atomic model paved the way for quantum theory, and his philosophical insights into the nature of reality continue to influence physicists and philosophers alike. But perhaps his greatest legacy is his belief in the power of curiosity and collaboration. He once said, "Every great and deep difficulty bears in itself its own solution. It forces us to change our thinking in order to find it." This spirit of inquiry, of embracing the unknown, is a testament to Bohr's enduring impact on the world. Niels Bohr's life was a journey through the quantum frontier, a testament to the power of intellect and the courage to question. His story reminds us that the pursuit of knowledge often leads us into uncharted territory, where the answers we seek may challenge our deepest beliefs. As we reflect on his legacy, we are left with a sense of wonder at the mysteries that still await us and a renewed appreciation for the minds that dare to explore them. Ibn al-Haytham, the father of optics and the scientific method. Imagine a world where the mysteries of light and vision were shrouded in myth, where the ancient Greeks' ideas about sight, such as rays shooting from the eyes, still held sway. Into this world stepped a scholar from the Islamic Golden Age, a man whose curiosity and intellect would illuminate the path to modern science. His name was Ibn al-Haytham, and his work would not only revolutionize our understanding of optics, but also lay the groundwork for the scientific method itself. This is the story of a thinker who dared to question the wisdom of the ancients, whose experiments with light would echo through the centuries, and whose legacy continues to inspire scientists and dreamers alike. But how did a young boy from Basra become one of the greatest minds in history? And what challenges did he face in his quest for truth? Let us journey back to a time of discovery and wonder to uncover the life and legacy of Ibn al-Haytham, a figure whose brilliance still shines brightly today. A scholar's journey begins in 965 CE in the bustling city of Basra in what is now Iraq. Here, in the heart of the Islamic Empire, a boy named Abu Ali al-Hasan ibn al-Haytham was born into a world rich with knowledge and culture. The Islamic Golden Age was in full bloom, a time when scholars from across the empire gathered in libraries and academies to translate, study, and expand upon the works of the Greeks, Persians, and Indians. Young Ibn al-Haytham was no exception. He was drawn to the pursuit of knowledge like a moth to a flame. But Ibn al-Haytham's path was not straightforward. He began his career as a civil servant, working in the administration of Basra. Yet the life of a bureaucrat could not satisfy his restless mind. He yearned for something more, a deeper understanding of the world around him. So he turned to the study of philosophy, mathematics, and the natural sciences, immersing himself in the works of Aristotle, Euclid, and Ptolemy. But it was the mysteries of light and vision that truly captivated him. Why did the ancient Greeks believe that sight came from rays emitted by the eyes? Could there be a better explanation? And these questions would drive him to embark on a journey of discovery that would change the course of science. The light of discovery. In the early 11th century, Ibn al-Haytham made a bold decision. He would dedicate his life to unraveling the secrets of light and vision. He moved to Cairo, the intellectual heart of the Islamic world, where he hoped to find patronage and the resources to conduct his experiments. But fate had other plans. The Caliph al-Hakim, a ruler known for his erratic behavior, tasked Ibn al-Haytham with regulating the flow of the Nile, a task that was, quite literally, impossible. Faced with the prospect of failure and the caliph's wrath, Ibn al-Haytham feigned madness to escape the impossible assignment. He was placed under house arrest, a confinement that would paradoxically become the crucible for his greatest work. In the solitude of his home, Ibn al-Haytham turned his attention to the study of light. He conducted a series of meticulous experiments, using darkened rooms, pinholes, and carefully placed screens to observe how light behaves. Through these experiments, he disproved the ancient theory that vision comes from rays emitted by the eyes. Instead, he demonstrated that light travels in straight lines and that vision occurs when light reflects off objects and enters the eye. This was a revolutionary idea, one that laid the foundation for modern optics. But Ibn al-Haytham's genius did not stop there. He wrote his findings in a 7-volume masterpiece, Kitab al-Manazir, the Book of Optics, which would become one of the most influential scientific works of the Middle Ages. In it, he explored the nature of light, the anatomy of the eye, and the principles of reflection and refraction. He even described the camera obscura, a precursor to the modern camera, and conducted the first experiments on the dispersion of light. His work was a beacon of clarity in a world still grappling with the mysteries of the natural world. A method for the ages, Ibn al-Haytham's contributions extended beyond optics. He was also a pioneer of the scientific method. In an era when knowledge was often derived from philosophical speculation, he insisted on the importance of empirical evidence. He wrote, "The duty of the man who investigates the writings of scientists, if learning the truth is his goal, is to make himself an enemy of all that he reads, and attack it from every side." This approach, questioning, experimenting, and verifying, was revolutionary, a blueprint for the scientific method that would be refined by later thinkers like Roger Bacon and Galileo. His method was not just a tool for science, it was a philosophy of inquiry, a way of seeing the world with fresh eyes. He understood that truth is not handed down from authority, but discovered through observation and reason. This spirit of curiosity and skepticism would echo through the centuries, inspiring generations of scientists to challenge the status quo and seek their own answers. A life of quiet brilliance. After his release from house arrest, Ibn al-Haytham continued his work, writing over 200 treatises on subjects ranging from astronomy to mathematics, from engineering to philosophy. He explored the concept of inertia centuries before Newton and made significant contributions to the understanding of atmospheric refraction. His work was translated into Latin and studied by scholars across Europe, influencing figures like Leonardo da Vinci, Johannes Kepler, and even Isaac Newton himself. Yet for all his brilliance, Ibn al-Haytham remained a humble and private figure. He shunned the spotlight, preferring the quiet pursuit of knowledge to the trappings of fame. He spent his later years in Cairo, where he continued to write and teach until his death in 1040 CE. His life was a testament to the power of intellect and the enduring quest for truth. A legacy that shines bright. Ibn al-Haytham's contributions to science are immeasurable. His work on optics laid the foundation for modern physics, and his emphasis on experimentation and observation became the cornerstone of the scientific method. Today, he is celebrated as one of the greatest scientists of the Middle Ages, a pioneer whose ideas transcended time and culture. But his legacy is not just in his discoveries, it is in the way he approached the world. He taught us that knowledge is not a destination, but a journey, that the pursuit of truth requires courage, curiosity, and an open mind. As we reflect on his life, we are reminded that the greatest minds are not those who know the most, but those who question the most. And so, dear listeners, we come to the end of our journey through the lives of history's greatest scientific minds. From the stargazers of ancient times to the quantum pioneers of the modern age, we have wandered through the halls of discovery, guided by the light of curiosity and reason. These stories are not just tales of the past, They are beacons for the future, reminders that the pursuit of knowledge is a journey without end. Thank you for joining me on this voyage through time and thought. As you drift into sleep, may the wonders of the universe fill your dreams, and may you wake with a renewed sense of awe for the world around you. Good night, and may your dreams be as boundless as the stars above.